Imagine being put in a situation you could not escape and being repeatedly given electric shocks, and nothing you do stops the shocks. What do you think you would do? Research suggests you'll initially try all sorts of different things to either get out of the physical situation or to somehow otherwise stop the shocks. But eventually, when that doesn't work, you're likely to stop trying and simply lie down and give up. Not only that, but when you're put in a similar situation again, you will likely resort to that so-called learned helplessness. You will give up. Experiments like these were conducted throughout the 1960s by Martin Seligman and his cohorts, using dogs as subjects. The really interesting thing, though, is that about 1/3 of those dogs in those experiments did not become helpless. When put in the same situation again, they kept trying, despite their past experiences where trying did not help them avoid the shocks. This research has helped our understanding of how some people cope with repeated setbacks and keep going until they find success, while others see defeat and give up. Seligman's book and teachings on learned optimism provide great insight into this. Today, I want to talk to you about that topic of resilience. Resilience is pivotal to our success because we need to be able to cope with change and failure. It's part of life. The very road to success is strewn with setbacks, barriers, and failure. Failure, even the word sounds negative, and the experience can seem hard because we've invested our time, money, and often emotion in achieving one thing, and when something else occurs, it makes us question why and doubt our ability. So let's look a little closer at failure, because without it, or at least without the perception of failure, there's no need for resilience anyway. Which brings us to truth number 1, which you may not have considered yet, and that is this. Failure is actually only possible within a certain context. Let me give you an example of exactly how true that is. The example I want to give you is actually one of the most successful brands and products of all time. Any guesses? Coca-Cola is today one of the world's greatest success stories, but did you know it started out as a complete dismal failure? Coca-Cola was actually invented by pharmacist John Pemberton in 1886. At the time, Pemberton and his team were actually trying to concoct a headache syrup, but they were having no success with the formula. The story goes that Pemberton went to the lab one day to find his team in the midst of a break. In the heat of the Atlantan weather, they had resorted to mixing the failed syrup with cool carbonated water as a refreshing drink. Pemberton realised that while the syrup might not be a winner as a headache cure, as a drink, the formula might well be a success, and so he developed the product to be sold as a soda. And the rest, as they say, is history. The point? Failure can only happen within a specific context. So you can change the context or the application, and new opportunities and possibilities for success arise. So, if you're staring down the barrel of failure, remember, the path to success is not straight. It is full of twists and turns. And when you fear failure, remember, you're just in the squiggly part right now, and success lies just around the corner. If you haven't succeeded, you simply haven't finished yet. So keep going. Truth number 2 about failure. Failure happens in the mind. If you think you've failed, then you really have. Irrelevant of anyone else's assertions, what you think determines what you do with the experience. And that experience will influence your behaviour and attitude with future experiences as well. So why not decide now not to do failure? It's in your mind, so only you get to choose what happens there. Okay, now that we've developed a resilient belief set as the foundation for our resilience, I want to share with you 3 top tips that will help you bounce back better and faster. These tips include reframes, that is, ways of thinking about or looking at things that make them easier, better, or are simply more useful to you. And other practical tools and questions you can use for greater resilience to reach the success that follows. So, are you ready to supercharge your thinking? Here we go. Research on optimism and resilience tells us that those who blame themselves for their personal failures and let that failure define them do not cope well with it and have poor resilience. So, your first key tip and useful belief set Failing does not make you a failure. It does not define you. We can, however, let those struggles and experiences refine us. Let the lessons we learn teach us how to do better next time, so we can see that this setback is not permanent, and recognize that we have control over our success going forward. In the same way that pressure turns coal into diamonds, let those struggles refine you into a better, stronger version of your current self. All of this requires positive thinking and powerful beliefs. All of this requires the willingness to embrace change and respond with change. As Darwin noted, it is not the strongest or the fittest of the species that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. The very fact that you are adapting now is making you more successful. And when that change or effort required seems just too hard, another useful resilience strategy is simply to ask yourself the question, well, too hard compared to what? When what is required of you seems too much, step out of the now and think forward. Is this hard that you're experiencing right now, harder than it will be later if you fail? Looking forward into your future and seeing how what you are doing now or not doing now is creating your future is a useful tool. Because either it's hard now, or it's even harder at the deadline, the finish line, D-Day. Often we quit simply because it just seems easier. When we can broaden our perspective to see the big picture, it's easier to find the reserves to keep going. I want to finish today's video with a story. The Cherokee Indians have a story which is a metaphor of the battle that happens inside each of us. An old man sits with his 2 grandsons around the fire, telling them of the tribe's folklores, beliefs, and ways. Boys, he says, there are 2 wolves continually fighting inside us. And, like you, each is strong, and each has the opportunity to grow, to lead. The first is evil, made from anger and greed, sorrow, regret, arrogance and false pride, ego and self-pity, resentment, and all of the foolishness man has inside. The second is good. It is joy, hope, humility, faith and love, kindness and peace, benevolence, serenity, the gifts from above. And he pauses, and he looks deep into the fire in front of them, as if searching for a conclusion to his story. After a while, no longer able to contain his curiosity, one of the boys asks, "Grandfather, which wolf wins?" The boy's voice breaks the old man out of his trance, and he turns his gaze upon the boys who sit at his feet, and he beholds them both, and his answer is as simple as it is wise. "The one we feed the most," replies the old man. And that is our opportunity too. Like the wolves from the Cherokee story, we have winning thoughts and negative thoughts battling inside us. Whichever we feed will thrive. The key to resilience is simply feeding the good wolf, feeding your mind the right thoughts. Now that's a thought worth thinking about. Have a positive, powerful, and proactive day.